Hello, welcome to Secret Zone. Subscribe and turn on notifications for stories you won't forget. Never planned to follow my wife. In fact, the idea would have offended me if someone had suggested it. I trusted her completely. Our marriage wasn't dramatic or loud or passionate in the way movies make it seem, but it was steady, quiet, predictable, and I believe that predictability meant safety. That night started like every other. No argument, no tension, no warning signs flashing in my face. Just a small, uncomfortable feeling I couldn't explain. The kind of feeling you push down because you don't want to be the person who doubts without proof. But as I watched her walk out the door, something inside me said this wasn't just another routine evening. I remember standing there for a moment, asking myself a simple question that would change everything. If nothing is wrong, then what am I so afraid of seeing? That question followed me all the way to my car, and before I could talk myself out of it, I made a decision I had never made before. I followed her. Not out of anger, not out of jealousy, but because peace of mind felt more important than comfort, and I needed to know whether the life I believed I was living was real, or whose story. I'd been telling myself for years. My life had followed the same rhythm. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. My wife and I fit into that rhythm so well that I stopped noticing the gaps. We didn't fight. We didn't argue. We didn't even disagree much. From the outside, we looked solid. From the inside, we were a kid. And I mistook that quiet for contentment. When she started spending certain evenings away, she had a simple explanation. It made sense. I had no reason to doubt her. And I didn't want to become the kind of man who questions his wife's every move. Trust, I believed, meant not asking too many questions. So primera, did, and I let the pattern become normal. I let the late returns, the distant smiles, the subtle changes fade into the background of our routine. Until one night, normal stopped feeling normal. That was the night I realized trust without awareness isn't loyalty, it's blindness. And the door she opened later that evening didn't just lead into a room. It led to the truth about my marriage, my choices, and the costs of ignoring what your instincts have been trying to tell you all along. I didn't start questioning my marriage because of a fight. There was no argument, no slammed door, no harsh words that pushed me into suspicion. Everything looked fine on the surface. That's what made it dangerous. Our life had settled into a rhythm that felt safe because it was familiar. We moved through our days like two people who knew exactly what to expect from each other, and I mistook that predictability for happiness. She began spending certain evenings away from home. At first, it felt healthy. People need space. People need friends. I told myself that a strong marriage doesn't cling, it trusts. So, I trusted. I didn't ask too many questions. I didn't check times. I didn't count how often it happened. I didn't want to be that person, but slowly, small details began to stack up in my mind. Not enough to accuse, just enough to notice. She'd come home lighter somehow, like she'd been somewhere that made her feel alive. Not joyful in a shared way, just lifted. Her phone became something she guarded without realizing she was doing it. Nothing dramatic, just subtle movements. A screen turned away. A pause before answering. Tiny things that meant nothing on their own, but together started to whisper. I told myself I was imagining it. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that, because the alternative meant admitting that I might be losing something I had stopped paying attention to. The moment everything shifted didn't feel explosive. It felt quiet. I was alone in the kitchen, looking for my car keys, already annoyed at myself for misplacing them again. Her bag was sitting there, partially open. I assumed I'd thrown the keys inside without thinking. When I reached in, I didn't find metal. I found plastic, a hotel key, card. I remember staring at it, waiting for my brain to catch up. It didn't make sense. We hadn't traveled. We hadn't stayed anywhere. I reached in again. Another card. Same hotel. Same design, same room number. That's when my heartbeat started to feel loud in my ears. I kept going. More cards. All the same, all from the same place. all tied to the same room. I laid them out carefully, like arranging evidence I didn't want to believe was real. That's when I noticed markings on the back. Faint, deliberate space evenly, like part of a routine. That word hit me harder than anything else. Routine. This wasn't random. This wasn't a mistake. This was something that had been happening quietly, consistently, while I went on believing everything was fine. I felt foolish. Not angry yet. Just foolish. Like someone who had been standing in the rain, insisting it wasn't raining, because admitting otherwise would mean admitting I was soaked. I stood there for a long time, staring at those cards, realizing that trust doesn't disappear all at once. It erodes when you stop looking closely, and somewhere along the way, I had stopped looking. I didn't confront her. Not then. I didn't storm into the room or demand answers. Part of me still wanted an explanation that wouldn't break everything. I needed confirmation before I destroyed my own world. So I did something I had never done before. I called the hotel. My voice sounded normal, even though my hands were shaking. I asked about the room number printed on the cards. I said I thought I had left something behind. There was a pause on the other end. Typing. Then the answer came calmly, professionally, and without any idea of the damage it was causing. The room wasn't available. It was reserved, not just reserved, recurring. The word echoed in my head long after the call ended. Recurring meant planned. Repeated. Comfortable. That night, when she said she was heading out, everything felt different. The words were the same. The tone was the same. The casual goodbye. But now I could hear the lie underneath it. Not because she sounded guilty, because I finally knew where she was really going. I told her I had somewhere to be as well. She barely looked up. No suspicion. No concern. That hurt more than anything else. I didn't follow her immediately. I drove ahead, my mind racing, my chest tight. I kept telling myself I could still turn around, that I could go home and pretend I didn't know. That ignorance might be easier than truth. But I didn't turn around. The hotel was unremarkable. That detail stuck with me. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't luxurious. It was practical. Discreet. Chosen because it didn't attract attention, because it didn't leave memories. I parked far away and waited. When her car arrived, she didn't hesitate. She didn't check surroundings nervously. She walked like someone who had done this many times before, like someone stepping into a familiar space. That realization hurt more than the betrayal itself. I followed at a distance. The hallway was quiet, neutral lighting. Closed doors. I watched her pull out a card and swipe it. A soft green light appeared. The door opened. I expected my body to react. Anger, panic, rage. Instead, I felt empty. Hollow. Like something inside me had already accepted what my mind was just catching up to. Moments later, the door opened again. A man stepped out. He looked confident, comfortable, like he belonged wherever he stood. And the worst part was that he wasn't a stranger. I recognized him, not personally, but enough to know exactly who he was, the owner of the business where she worked. That's when it stopped being just about betrayal. It became about deception layered on top of power. Control. Convenience. She followed him out shortly after, not touching, not speaking, but clearly connected. I didn't need to hear words. I didn't need to see more. The truth had already settled into place. I didn't confront them. I didn't create a scene. I walked away quietly, carrying something far heavier than anger, clarity. When she came home later, she acted like nothing was wrong. That almost broke me. The casual way she spoke, the practiced normalcy. It showed me how long this double life had existed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply showed her the cards. Her reaction told me everything before she said a word. The color drained from her face. Silence filled the space between us, thick and heavy. She didn't deny it. She tried to explain it. She said she felt invisible, unseen, like life had become routine instead of connection. She said she hadn't planned for it to happen, that it started with conversations, that it made her feel alive again. I listened, really listened, and then I understood something important. Explanations don't undo choices. Feelings don't erase actions. I told her I was done. Not in anger. Not in revenge. In certainty. What followed was fallout. Not loud. Just devastating. Lawyers. Separation. Quiet rooms. A life being dismantled piece by piece. I learned things I hadn't known before. About him. About how carefully everything had been hidden. About how easily people can live two lives when no one is looking too closely. I could have stayed silent. Protected reputations. Avoided discomfort. I didn't. The truth surfaced. Consequences followed. Lives changed. And through it all, I felt something strange growing inside me. Relief. Painful. Yes, but real. My life became smaller after that. Fewer shared spaces. Fewer routines. Less certainty. But it also became honest. I stopped confusing silence with peace. I stopped believing that comfort equals love. I learned that ignoring your instincts doesn't make you loyal. It makes you absent. I don't regret following her. I regret ignoring myself for so long. That door she opened didn't just end my marriage. It ended the version of me that was afraid to see the truth, and I don't live that way anymore. I sat alone for a long time after everything ended, staring at the ceiling, letting the silence sink in. The house felt emptier, colder, but strangely lighter, too. For the first time in years, I could breathe without holding my stomach in, without pretending everything was fine. The truth had hurt more than I ever imagined it could, but it had also freed me. I realized that sometimes, the hardest thing isn't finding out someone betrayed you. It's facing the reality you've been avoiding about your own life, your own choices, and the illusions you've been living in. I chose to follow that night not because I wanted to punish anyone, but because I wanted to see the truth, even if it shattered everything I thought I knew. And when I did, I understood something important. Lies might feel easier, but they always leave you trapped. Truth is painful, but it is also real. And it is also the only thing that can set you free. If this story resonates with you, remember that courage they always load. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's simply choosing to see what's really there, no matter how much it hurts. I hope you never ignore the signs, never stay in the dark for comfort, and never settle for the life that looks safe but isn't honest. Because in the end, freedom comes from the truth. And sometimes, the hardest door to open the one in front of you, the one inside your own mind. If you enjoy hidden truths, emotional stories, and secrets people never talk about, subscribe to Secret Zone. Every story here reveals something shocking. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Take care, and see you in the next video.